is just something that I coined phrase, and I call it buffer management. And what buffer management is a way to run the factory that requires a lot less supervision and gives the operators all of the know-how on what to do, when, where, when to start working, and believe it or not, there are times you should stop working. Okay, so this one, I've kind of coined phrase buffer management. And this kind of evolved after being in factory after factory after factory, and when you start seeing waste, you start identifying waste. I mean, just watch Filipe for 2 seconds. This guy is the master at seeing waste and getting people to identify it and emphasizing how important it is to learn. And you guys know all about 7 deadly wastes. You're like, you know, all that stuff. Okay, so overproduction, number 1, worst of the 8 deadly wastes. Debatably human creativity, if we want it to be fluffy, but by the book, we're talking 8 deadly wastes. As soon as you overproduce, you engage all of the other 8 deadly wastes instantly. So sometimes if I have to move this part from here to here, well, I had to transport that, so that was waste, but I actually did the moving, so there was a waste of motion as well. So transportation and motion often are buddies. They hang out a lot. But overproduction, instantly all other 7. So the first thing I want to do everywhere I go is I want to look for overproduction. I want to get rid of it. It's the biggest bang for the buck. So how do we get rid of overproduction? Would be, first you have to find it and see it. And it's caused mostly by what we call silo thinking. So silo thinking is, I'm thinking about me at my station on my machine, and often driven by some kind of an efficiency mandate is, I need to make this many parts a day, blah, 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 blah. So now I'm just going to start cranking out parts on my machine, and I'm not thinking about what's happening over here and what's happening over here. Getting people to stop working is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to try and do. Believe it or not, if you have a factory where everybody's working all the time, you are probably very inefficient. Sounds a little insane, doesn't it? So very counterintuitive. Lots of the Toyota stuff is. So getting into buffer management, one of the biggest challenges we have in manufacturing, particularly on the shop floor, this is limited to the shop floor, but definitely all this stuff could apply to office work too, is how do I know what to do? How do I know when to do it? And then usually there's asking somebody what to do. So typical shop scenario, I'm working at station 1. Do you want to come here for a second, Filipe, or are you videoing? Here, I'll use Adam. Come here. So I'm working at station 1, Adam's working at station 2, and we're producing stuff. Let's just get some stuff going on. So we've got markers and foam. We're producing all of this stuff. So I'm making this stuff, and I'm kind of sending it on down the line, and Adam's working on this one, but he's struggling a little bit. I'm in my silo, NMP, right? Like, not my problem. I'm just going to keep producing. Sooner or later, he's going to catch up. And all that does is it makes me overproduce. So maybe we should touch on something that I didn't realize that I knew until Filipe pointed it out. Overproduction is not just making too much of something. So if you have orders for 100 plaques and I make 110, I've overproduced, right? But if the order is for 100 plaques and Adam is working at station 2 and he is consuming 1 a minute and I'm making 2 a minute, I'm overproducing. That's overproduction. Overproduction is just producing more than the subsequent stage in the game can consume. So it's not just making more than what the order's for, it's making more than what the next step needs. That's overproduction. So in this case, I'm overproducing. So you want to stop that overproduction situation right away And that's the hard part. So if Adam's building and I'm producing, and now I have to start stacking things where they don't go if I keep producing, then I say, okay, I gotta stop working. So I'm gonna just stop. And believe it or not, you guys will do far better by stopping than by keeping going, because flow has stopped. We've got this big trough and we pour water in one end and it just comes out the other end. Well, right now we've got a dam halfway down and all that's happening is we're building up parts. So we have to break down that mentality of that's my station, I just need to produce my thing and he's gonna keep up or catch up. So what we started to develop was what we call work buffers. So between step, and I wish I spent more time here with you guys, but you'll have to do the math. Between step 1 and step 2, okay, we create a work buffer. So this will be our buffer. We determine what that quantity is. For you guys, it'll be something. You guys have to, you know your volume, you know your product mix and all that other stuff. So right now, I'll try and use your stations and maybe you can help me out. This is the metal cutting, not meat cutting, definitely metal. Then the next step is that color printing, right? Am I right? Yes. Then we go from color printing to laser. Is laser with an S or a Z?
S.
Wow, I got it right. And then from the laser we go to packing, tasking. Okay, for all intents and purposes, they're out the door at that point. Okay, so we determine what's in this buffer so we don't have an overproduction situation. So if we say we're gonna put between metal, well, this could be a long lesson now. But okay, so between metal and color printing, right now you guys have a full day. You guys put a day's worth of work in this buffer. We'll fix that too, but let's just say there's 100 pieces in here. And then we're gonna put 100 pieces over here, and then laser pack and ship. So for the metal cutting, anytime, like right now, you're cutting the day before for the whole next day. So we're creating a huge batch. And if I leave you with anything, just every time you hear the word batch, just cringe and be like, oh, I gotta get rid of that. Because that will get you a long way down the road. So we're gonna put 100 pieces between here and here, and we could have a person, working each station. And it's easy to do on the whiteboard in theory. You guys have to do the math for what you guys got going on. So we put 100 pieces in here. So this guy starts working, and he starts filling up his buffer, putting parts in the buffer. This guy's working, and he's pulling parts out of the buffer. These guys are working. We've got 2 guys typically at this station, I think. And they're putting work in their buffer and they're pulling work out of their buffer. If these are all perfectly balanced, then you'll get, whatever, let's just try and keep easy numbers. We'll get 100 a day. And if this gets into me doing math in public, I know that's the biggest faux pas ever, so I'll try and avoid it. But what we have between these stations is statistical fluctuation. There will never be ever, and I know like a lot of lean guys would preach, balance your line. If you balance your line, you're in trouble. You'll lose production and never get it back. Another whole lesson, but TOC covers that if you guys are real interested, which is Goldratt stuff, the theory of constraints. So we have 100 in our buffer. What this does is, let's say this guy's station breaks down, or something slowing this guy down. This guy's gonna keep producing. If he's not paying attention all the way over in, like right now, in another cell somewhere, then he's in danger of overproducing. He could just be cutting. We put that buffer in and make it visual, and then when he gets to 100 pieces, he has to stop. First and foremost, just stop. Anything over that 100 pieces, this 100 pieces is already waste, but we've agreed that this is a safe waste that we're gonna work on getting rid of another day. So he needs to stop working. And then when this guy starts to consume again, he gets the machine fixed or whatever, and he pulls one part out of there, that's his cue, I need to get working again as fast as humanly possible. So this part is also a little counterintuitive, is we want to pay people for their readiness, not for their time. Because I don't want another part in here in some arbitrary time. I want another part in here the instant that this guy has taken a part out of his buffer. So this guy standing there doing nothing is, most production people think the number one biggest waste is a resource standing idle. And that's not true, because the resource is ready. And one good example of that is, I'm sure we have a firefighting department in this town.
Yeah.
What would happen if the firefighters were working all day, every day?
A lot of places would burn down.
Your whole town would be on fire. So you do not want your fire department working all day, every day, but you sure do want them ready when you need them. So it's the same thing with machines and operators. We don't necessarily need them working all day, but we need them when we need them, where we need them. So this buffer then starts talking to your operators. When it gets to 100, your buffer says, whoa, stop working. So we stop. When it gets down to 99, give me parts. And you give it parts. So in a normal day, you'll fluctuate in here and you'll fluctuate in here and whatever. You'll have your throughput during the day. But this is the magic. Let's say we're down here and this guy had a bad burrito at lunch. So he's out. He's in the bathroom with no hope of coming out anytime soon. You've got this poor guy lasering and packing. Well, all the way down at the other end of the factory, we have no concept. We're still in our silo and we're just like making metal. We even used all our scrap now, so we got lots of metal, right? So we're grooving.
Dig with the scrap.
So this guy's printing, and you know, like maybe these guys were quick and they've got 60 pieces in here. This guy's in the can, this guy's scrambling to keep up. Well, he starts feeding this, and then all of a sudden he's got 80, then he gets 100. What does the buffer say? Stop working. Okay, so I stop. This guy still doesn't know. He doesn't know what's going on down here. So he's producing, and the same thing happens in his buffer. It builds up and builds up and builds up until he gets to that point where he has to stop too. And then he stops. So believe it or not, having these two people standing there doing nothing is 100,000 times better than these two people continuing to produce, putting it on carts and racks and wherever until this guy gets back out of the bathroom. So that's kind of like phase one, learn how to stop. Once these are established, don't just arbitrarily stop working. That bankruptcy is guaranteed at that point. So now what I like to do is I like to kind of like split this down the middle here and say this is parts flow, and this works amazing, absolutely amazing. You will never overproduce in this situation, and now it gives you a way to start reducing your inventory. Work in process is inventory. Stretching or question?
Stretching.
Okay. We're warming up. So now we know our buffers are at 100. So now management has a way to start saying, hey, you know what? I want a reduction in inventory. Let's make our buffers 80 and see what happens. Every time you lower your inventory, you raise awareness on all the problems you have. So you will experience pain every time you drop these down, but it's not pain, oh no, let's go back. It's pain, awesome, let's fix it. That's the view you have to have. So I call this part flow is the top. It works really well. Your production will definitely go up. Your flow will go up, your inventory will go down. But then you want to put this on the juice and you add the second half, which I call people flow. And now you really got it, because in this parts flow, we have guys that are just stopped, and there's always stuff to do. You can do your 5S'ing or 3S'ing or 4, however many S's you guys want to use. You can do that. You can make some improvements. You can clean your work area. You can do all kinds of stuff with that time, so it's not totally down the toilet. But whatever you do, don't produce. Now, you put it on the juice and you say, okay, we're going to learn people flow. So now the same scenario happens. This guy's out. This guy's scrambling to keep up, but he can't consume as fast as the other stations are producing. So this guy gets to 100. Now he has to stop. Usually you have supervisor guy down here. So I have to stop. Oh, hey Joe, what do you want me working on? Okay, Joe has 650 things on his mind. He's got all the customer orders. He's got this other poor guy in the bathroom. Maybe he needs to go too, so he's thinking about the bathroom. He's got 1,000 things on his head, and someone turns around arbitrarily in the plant and says, so hey, what do you want me to do? You're going to make just as bad a decision as the operator would. You're going to look around. You're going to look for something that might need some attention and say, go there. And they're going to say, okay, yes, I'm going to go there. And they're going to start working. But the question is, did they need to go to that spot? Is that the spot where flow has been interrupted? We don't know. It might just be a pile that looks like it needed help, but it didn't. So what the buffers allow us to do is we don't need to ask him anything anymore. My buffer's full. If my buffer's full, I go that way. And I join this guy. And I start to restore flow. This guy's going to produce and produce and produce. Well, this buffer, remember, it's already full. It's at 100. This guy's over here helping him relieve whatever problems he's having. This guy's buffer gets full. What does he do? He goes upstream too. And he says, oh, wait a second. This one's buffer's full too. I'm going to go and I'm going to check it out. I'm going to investigate some more. So then he goes over here. Well, now all of a sudden, where you had one guy dying, you have 3 guys completely starting to restore flow. When this gets down to a comfortable 50, 40, 30, depending on his estimated time of being away, this guy then returns to his station over here. This guy stays because his buffer is full. This buffer, it's all you need to tell you what to do and where to go. Then once he starts consuming, then he goes back to his station. Maybe at that point, this guy is back here, but maybe not. So then all of this whole thing just repeats again. As soon as the buffers fill up, people start shifting downstream and helping exactly where the problem is. Not over here or something over here, or go load that truck, go inspect more plates, go do whatever. They're going right to the source because these buffers tell us where to go when, with zero direction down here.
Good.
How do you begin to calculate, and obviously we don't have to go into the exercise of calculating hours, but how would one calculate the buffer amount? And is it related to
Now, you know what?
machine cycle time or demand or?
I would say, okay, so the smaller your buffers are, the better you have to be as a manufacturer. The bigger your buffers are, the lazier you can be. So how sharp are you? You think you're good? Make it 1. Watch what happens. You won't produce anything that day. But, so I would just, in total intuition, I would just talk to the guys on the floor and just be like, hey guys, we're gonna try this out. How much is usually on our cookie rack? I don't know, there's usually 300 pieces. Start there.
Another just another idea is, right, is, so you could go pick, kind of like, what's your worst case scenario, right? Your machine goes down, how long is your machine typically down?
Right.
If your machine's typically down for 4 hours and you roughly go, I make this many parts, and it's gonna take me 4 hours to get it back up, that could be where you start with your buffer,
Right.
or another term for it is safety stock, right? It's
Yeah.
your safety that you feel comfortable with. And that would be like another gut check to go, okay, worst case scenario, my machine goes down, I've got enough pieces here that I can keep on working. But just like Brad said, because I've lived this before, when you decrease that amount of safety stock, it's not going to be all smooth and everything's perfect and rosy. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, this was horrible. Okay, but that's how you get better. You don't ever grow unless you experience some pain, right? So you're going to hit, when you decrease it, you're going to see all these things that you don't normally see because they cover up the amount of waste in your process, and it's going to force you to change them and get better.
Yeah, Thomas just nailed it. How big are my buffers? Because how big is Murphy?
Yeah.
You know, does this machine usually go down for a day? Does this machine never go down? Does this, you know, so this is essentially your Murphy factor.
Murphy's Law
And-
factor.
And
Yeah.
would you, in your example, your buffers are equal number of parts in each buffer. Is that always the case, or would I have, for instance, we're talking about machine downtime.
No.
So I could, because this is not a like we've got this, there's some duplication in this process of
Right.
multiple machines. So maybe this buffer's quite small.
Right.
And then, but this buffer may be larger, so that's, okay. got it.
And they're two different things, right?
Yeah.
Here you're cutting metal, here you've got
It's
fully
actually
assembled
printed pieces,
plaques,
yeah.
so in each step. Now, one other thing quickly before you run away is, what do you notice about your processes right here? Maybe that's too wide open, let me give you the answer. These two are connected. You guys have those connected out in your plant. The guy lasering the nameplate has the guy packing them right beside him, and he's banging them out as fast as he's cutting them. What do you knows about these two?
All spread out.
They're disconnected. So if you want to establish perfect flow, your processes need to be connected. If you can't connect your processes, you need a buffer to tell you what to do.